The SMART project brought together athletes from all over the world. In total, we conducted 13 focus groups, involving 61 elite-level athletes. They came from 14 countries and represented 26 different sports. Moderated by an athlete, they talked to us about their values and how these values have guided them in sport and in life. We recorded these discussions for further analyses. Through a rigorous process of sense-making and consensus building, we identified important issues in what athletes shared with us. These were linked to how values are put in practice, the sources of one's values, the stability and flexibility of the value priorities, the role of personal integrity, the importance of self-reflection and awareness in both good and bad times, conflicting values, and doping. In this video, we talk about one of these issues. Building from athletes' real-life experiences they shared with us, we explore situations where values we hold conflict with one another. We all know that sport can teach values such as fairness, team building, equality, discipline, inclusion, perseverance, and respect. Sport values, or as they sometimes called, the spirit of sport, are one of the 3 pillars of anti-doping. Doping is prohibited because it is against the spirit of sport, which is to say that doping contravenes the positive values sport can teach. The other 2 reasons for prohibition is unfair performance enhancement and risk to health. Values are our guiding principles in life. Our values intuitively tell us what's right and what's wrong for us. Values also guide our choices and, in some ways, they sum up who we are as a person, what we stand for, and what is important to us. When asked about values, responses given by athletes participating in the SMART project included values, goals, aspirations, and personality traits. Specifically, athletes mentioned values such as
integrity over performance,
and
gratification, fun, joy, and health.
When talking about goals, one athlete highlighted how important it is being a role model.
That feeling you get when kids look at you like, I want to be like him. That makes you feel so happy.
Other athletes emphasized not only what they wanted to achieve but also the way they wanted it to happen. They said things like,
treating everyone fairly, and being treated fairly.
Another athlete said,
to me fair play is important, and not trying to win something the wrong way.
Some athletes defined their values through the kind of person they wanted to be. As one athlete put it,
an important value to me is to be truthful and honest and to be 100% real.
But values are not the same as our personality, and they are not the same as our goals. Does it really matter that these concepts are different? Well, yes, it does, because being able to differentiate between our values, goals, and desired personality, called the ideal self, helps us to make sense of complex situations and to make better decisions in life. It is also important because values are not goals but guiding principles. However, acting according to our values needs context. Our personal values are put into practice via our goals. That is a combination of what we want to achieve and how we want to achieve it. Let's talk about these concepts in detail first. Then we can move on to talking about value conflicts. First, let's talk about values. Values such as honesty, benevolence, self-direction, commitment, humility, and achievement. These are abstract constructs. Values signal what is important to us. Sometimes values act as motivation, they give us extra energy. In other instances, values serve as a compass, or a lighthouse that helps us navigate through dark times and bad situations. Values also help us to choose the right path in situations where decision-making is difficult. Of course, our values influence our goals, but they are not goals. Furthermore, values are not isolated. They are related to one another. Together they form our value system. In this system we prioritize values which are important to us differently. This can create a conflict between you and others in your environment. Next, let's discuss goals. Goals are what we want to achieve. This is called goal content. But goals also relate to how we want to achieve them. We call this goal striving. Examples of goals mentioned by the athletes in the SMART project include health, fair play, respect, enjoyment, success, and status. Last, we should talk about personality. Personality has multiple facets. On the one hand, personality traits are biological and thus primordial. This is who we are, this is our actual self. On the other hand, we also have an image of ourselves, the person we aspire to be. This is our ideal self. Who we are is made up of the combination of these two aspects, as well as the constant negotiation between them. People shape their value systems to adapt them to their personality traits and to the image of their ideal self they have in their mind. Athletes we interviewed spoke about being competitive, resilient, loyal, reliable, confident in their own abilities, and determined. Values are the intermediaries between the innate characteristics of who we are and the ideal self-image of who we want to be. Values also connect both who we are and who we want to be to our goals. Internal value conflicts happen when we experience a gap between who we are and who we want to be, or between our different goals. We can also be conflicted about the goal we want to achieve and the means we have found to achieve it. When we feel that our values are pulling us in different directions, it's unsettling and uncomfortable. We spend a lot of time thinking about how to solve this conflict and how to determine the right thing to do. The first step is to take a very close look at the apparent value conflict, in order to identify whether those values truly conflict. It may actually just be a question of how you invest your time and energy in two different domains of life. Or a case trying to achieve two big goals at the same time. Once you have made sense of the apparent value conflict, practical solutions for the problem often become clear. A lot of so-called values conflicts actually turn out to be something else. These conflicts can be related to life domains such as sport, family, friends, study, or work. They may be about your specific goals, how you want to achieve these goals, or the kind of person you want to be. Next, let's explore what causes value conflicts. Our value priorities can be challenged by our environment. This happens when there is a conflict between our values and what is valued by people and organizations around us. There are also situations in which our values truly conflict with one another, and we experience internal conflicts. Value conflicts are underpinned by the values that are important to us, say value A and value B. One way we manage these conflicts is by actively identifying areas in our lives where we can enact value A alone, or value B alone, and by identifying situations where we can fulfill both values A and B without conflict. Another way is by making changes to our value system. We temporarily prioritize some values over others, then change the priorities again if a different situation calls for it. Value conflicts are both normal and very common. Prioritizing some values over others is temporary and situational, and it does not mean that values with lower priority in one situation are no longer important to us. They are just less important than others in a particular situation. In the SMART project, we identified patterns that capture the typical value conflicts in sport as they were experienced by athletes. We grouped their experiences based on some common characteristics among them. These patterns were captured in 3 themes. One theme focuses on the sources of value conflicts, describing situations when values clash with those in the athlete's environment or conflicting internally. Another theme focuses on value priorities. The third theme captures how athletes have dealt with both internal and external value conflicts. In the next 5 minutes, we talk about each in detail. First, let's explore external value conflicts.
Athletes started experiencing value conflicts when they entered the elite level due to increased pressure from fans, sponsors, and media. They felt that they had to portray a personality to the outside world, to the media, that was different from who they felt they really were in their private lives. Sport at elite level is not just sport, it's also entertainment. One female MMA fighter commented,
"If you are a professional athlete, you are almost becoming a brand. You are a brand."
Further pressure leading to value conflicts stemmed from the fact that for some sports opportunities to compete are relatively rare, competitions are few and far between, with fierce competition for qualification, and also when athletes experience firsthand that the system is not up to the high standards they set for themselves. Coming from a high-risk sport for doping, one participant, a male powerlifter, reflected on his experiences when he said,
I have had to really question my underlying values when the system itself is not at the standards I set for myself.
Athletes also described how difficult it was to act in line with their own values when most of the people around them hold different values about sportspersonship and fairness. One athlete shared a disturbing story.
One player was announced for us who was older in age than we were. He should not have played because he was older. He had fake documents, or I don't know, maybe he didn't. But our coach said that he was our age to everyone and allowed him to play, although he knew it was not by the rules. The worst thing is that we won in this game. We won thanks to this player. Moving on from this. Next, let's talk about internal value conflicts.
Sport commitment and the athlete lifestyle are not kind to social life. Stories of missed birthdays, family dinners, and friendships are all too frequent in elite athletes' lives. One female athlete observed,
Sometimes my friends would think I did not care much about them and thought that I preferred sport to them. But I think part of the society doesn't understand or underestimates how serious we are in our sport, and see it like a game.
Athletes also recalled situations in which they felt conflicted about their own behavior. One player reflected on his own actions and explained,
It goes like this. You want to be modest, for example, but in a game when you score goals or a good combination passes, you begin to show your superiority over your opponents, including gestures. Then realize that you have not very beautifully behaved.
Another theme focused on value priorities.
Some athletes say they experience doubts about their value priorities, especially in challenging times, or when their environment changed as a result of moving teams, leagues, or even countries. Acting against your everyday values in high-pressure situations is all too common, and in such situations athletes will draw the line between what's okay and what is not at different points. Characteristically, the only time athletes reflect on their values actively is when the situation presents some kind of value conflict. Those times can be as dramatic as serious injuries, or losing a major competition. Other times may include a bad day on the field, or when they need to find motivation to go training when the weather is awful, or when they feel tired and sleeping a little longer may prove a very tempting alternative. Athletes also reflect more on their value priorities as they get older. They felt this to be a normal part of maturing, and recognize the importance of doing so at times when things go well as in challenging times, even if they don't necessarily practice what they preach. One athlete acknowledged,
When it is good, it is easy. I never be really reflective when things are going well. It is only really in times of hardship where that self-reflection tends to happen. I always come to the same end point, but I think it is useful to check in with yourself from time to time.
Next, let's take a look at how athletes manage external value conflicts.
Athletes dealt with the value conflicts they experience in different ways. Some experienced negative emotions such as frustration, anger, or disappointment, but others felt indifferent or even motivated.
Another theme focused on how athletes manage their internal value conflicts.
Athletes employed a variety of ways to help them decide in value conflict situations. These included staying true to their personal beliefs, prioritization and reprioritization, and looking for examples in older athletes and role models. A male runner explained,
The role models definitely play a big part in setting those sort of what's okay and what is not, because they are the ones that are hounded for setting bad examples when they go too far.
Some athletes explained that in situations in which they experienced a value conflict, they found it helpful to actively reflect on their own values and strengthen their awareness of them. This enabled them to overcome challenging situations in a way that was in line with their core values. As one female mixed martial art fighter said,
I need to keep reminding myself why I am here and what is my goal, and that there is an endpoint to what I do, and I want to achieve.
Although doping was not an acceptable option to the athletes we spoke to, they did reflect on it.
I think every athlete thinks about it when you are too close. This is the most important decision that an athlete will take in his career, to believe in himself. To do it alone takes a lot of work, a lot of failure maybe. If someone cheating to win against him, he will lose, but at the end, he will become when he goes to sleep. He can say that, I believed in my values and I was honest. I think this is the most crucial moment of an athletic career.
Some athletes managed value conflicts by separating the thoughts and feelings that seemed to conflict from each other. Whenever they were confronted with a situation in which they had to compete against someone who doped, or someone who did not share the same values, they tried to focus on themselves. One Irish parasport athlete explained,
I'm not going to be distracted by it, but maybe I can motivate myself and kind of feel a little bit pissed off and allow it, and use it as a kind of motivation to fuel your own performance and just try to get the best out of yourself.
In total, more than 60 elite athletes shared their thoughts with us. So, what can we learn from these shared experiences? People get a sense of fulfillment from living their lives according to their values every step of the way. Athletes who took part in the SMART project talked about how their sense of fulfillment came from finding joy in the process of achieving their goals, even when they did not actually achieve a specific goal, as well as from actual achievements. Because of external circumstances, we don't have full control over whether we can achieve our goals or not, but we do have full control over decisions about how we want to live our lives. Focusing on goals, we may or may not succeed, but we can choose to focus on values that are important to us. This gives us full control over our lives. We do this via a process called sense-making. Without making a conscious effort, our brain continuously processes information it receives from our environment. However, in decision-making, we can actively help this process. In this respect, sense-making is understood as the processes through which people interpret and give meaning to their experiences. Sense-making is not decision-making. It is the necessary precursor to deciding in uncertain situations. As such, sense-making always takes place in a specific context. It connects abstract values to everyday choices.
Situations that call for decisions come with options. Although we cannot tell which option is going to be the best for us, we can actively examine our goals, ideal selves and, most importantly, our values.
The decisions you make in sport carry over to your life off the pitch, and vice versa. You can't be one person in your sport life and another one outside of sport. Values belong to you as a person, not separately to you as an athlete. Your desired future self helps you evaluate your goals and stay connected to your values. As athletes shared,
Sport doesn't form your character, but it reveals it, so you understand who you are through sport.
I felt exactly the same. I met my bad, my worst and my better character in sport.
one powerful exercise which may help you realize what is really important to you is to imagine what you would like your family and friends to say about you on your 80th birthday. They most likely will reflect on how you lived your life, not just what you achieved. When in doubt, think about what your future self would tell you to do. Imagine yourself in the future helps because your future self will inherit the decisions, good and bad, that your current self makes today. Thank you for watching this video about value conflicts in sport.